everyone, this is Patti Conklin. The show is Quantum Physics to Metaphysics with Life in Between. My guest today is Bernie Siegel MD, and I'm so excited and so happy to have him on the show with me today. I've got his bio, which is about 2.5 pages long, and I'm not going to sit and read it at all because I suspect that most of you have read his books or certainly seen him somewhere, either in conference or television or webcam or whatever. But there's so many different books. And first book was Love, Medicine, and Miracles in 1986. Then moving on to 1989, Peace, Love, and Healing. And 1993, How to Live Between Office Visits. Those are just a few of the starters. And I thank you so much for joining us today. And Bernie, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Patti.
I really appreciate having you on. So you have just got such a wonderful compilation of life experiences in everything you've been doing. Is there one thing that's really been standing out in your lifetime, or has everything been growing and enriching you as you've moved along?
Well, I do what Joseph Campbell suggested. When you're going through hell, say, what am I learned from this experience?
Mm-hmm.
So I call life a labor pain. And I try to keep improving and giving birth to myself.
Right.
You know, as one woman, matter of fact, with cancer said that the 9 months of her pregnancy were worthwhile. She gave birth to a child. And then she said 12 months of chemotherapy and radiation were worthwhile. I gave birth to myself. So when you see it that way, you also have a lot less pain.
Yeah.
I mean, that's something that I began to learn, the power of the mind, that the people who don't die when they're supposed to always have a story to tell you.
That's right.
And if you learn from their stories, let them become your teacher. And that's really what happened to me. When a patient said, I need to know how to live between office visits, that was an enormous change. As a matter of fact, one of my partners, who's very intuitive, after I came home from a workshop and walked in, sitting next to that patient who said that to me, he said to me, you're gone. I said, what are you talking about? He said, you're going to give up surgery.
Wow.
You're not the same person you were on Friday.
Wow.
And how right he was.
Yeah.
And so I'd say again, it's the Mother Teresa approach. I will not attend an anti-war rally, but if you ever have a peace rally, call me.
Exactly.
So I learned to help people to heal their lives. And then when they heal their lives, they derive physical benefits.
Exactly.
Okay? Yeah. So, the Monday morning syndrome, we have more heart attacks, strokes, suicides, and illnesses. Canceling Monday doesn't improve our health. It's changing your attitude.
True.
So that's a big part. Yeah. And, I never stopped talking because of all the people I knew who, lived these examples. One was a man. After a lecture, he walked up to me and he said, I want to thank you. And he had a pin on the word attitude. And he said, this is something my wife got me because when I'm not living, the sermon, he said, she walks over, holds the pin, gives it a twist and says, honey, straighten out your attitude. So, that's what I mean by coaching.
Yes.
Constructive criticism. It's not, you're a failure, you embarrass me. See, that's the other side of the coin. My mother's words were eating away at me and maybe gave me cancer.
Right.
Your mother tell you, you're a failure, you embarrass us, dressed her in dark clothes so nobody would notice her.
Yeah. When
she got cancer, she woke up, bought a red dress, changed her life, and is still out there enjoying life.
Right.
And I have to always add that the first time I met her, I wondered how her husband let her out of the house because she was dressed in iridescent red that was giving me a headache.
Wow.
Standing in front of her lecturing.
Yeah.
And I thought, how can you let your wife dress like that? But then she handed me a letter explaining her life. And
that's right.
Then I love it.
And then you really
if I'm in her area, I always ask her to stand up in the audience. Yeah. Because I know she'll have a red outfit on.
Yeah.
And I can point it out to people. So again, you don't lose your life pleasing everyone else.
That's right.
See, you lose the untrue life, and that's how you save your life.
Yeah. I mean, that makes so much sense when one of the acronyms that I developed years ago was the SHIT effect, which was when life's going great and everything starts to fall apart and people start questioning, why is this happening? Say it's the shit effect. It's the spiritual human in transition. You're just growing. And if even though you may be challenged emotionally or whatever, you are still going through a wonderful growth process, and you will have learned a tremendous amount as you get through that aspect. And always know that you'll get through it, because I really believe that good always comes out of bad.
Yeah, you have to have faith. One of the things I learned was to ask people, "What are you experiencing?"
Yes.
See, not what's your diagnosis.
That's
but
right.
What are you experiencing? And I'll tell you how much benefit you can derive from that simple question.
Yeah. Well, folks, when we get back from our break, we're going to go into that. This is Patti Conklin with Quantum Physics to Metaphysics. My guest today is Bernie Siegel MD. We'll be right back after the break.
If you'd like to become a leader or enhance your leadership skills, my name is Dr. Vicki Nienhuis, and I'm one of Patti Conklin's certified associates. My background is in the field of education. The soul of leadership comes down to relationships. So whether you're administrator, a principal, a manager, or you're in charge of a group of people, how can you enhance those leadership skills? How can you cultivate a culture that enhances personal relationships? Because the strength of your school, your company, organizations are the relationships. I'm able to come in and meet with you, your staff, your employees, and talk about what's going on within your organization or school. What things are you struggling with? What small changes can we do to make your school and organization an even better place? Because the key to success is a place where people feel valued and supported, and relationships are at the center and the soul of your organization.
More information at PattiConklin, PattiConklin.com. This is Quantum Physics to Metaphysics with your host, Patti Conklin. And here's Dr. Bernie Siegel.
Hello again. One of the things I was thinking about was a quote from Carl Jung, because it's always amazing how people think they're coming up with something new, and it ain't, if you know what I mean. You know, when everybody writes a book when they have a tragedy or some other thing, and I already tell them, your book's been written. Yeah. And I've even put that in the front of my book, saying, everything I have to tell you has already been written.
That's right.
You know, it's just my story. But Jung said, the diagnosis may help the doctor, but it doesn't help the patient. For there, the key thing is the story. For only at that moment can the doctor's therapy begin to operate.
Yeah.
And another sentence that was in a medical article was that doctors are trained to treat the result, not the cause.
Very true.
You see, and I learned to ask people, what's going on in your life? Oh, and then doctors would say to me, you blame all your patients. I said, what are you talking about? You ask them what's going on in their life. I said, yeah, that could contribute to why they're sick at this time. It's not saying it's your fault, but what can contribute. Right. And so I started, I don't know how this happened, but saying to people, what are you experiencing? And if they gave me a diagnosis, like carcinoma of the colon, I'd say, that's not an experience, that's a diagnosis.
That's a diagnosis, yes.
Yeah. And so when people would say words like failure, roadblock, pressure, I'd say, how does that word fit your life?
Yeah.
And then they'd look at you like, wow. Because my comment always is, if the words are negative ones, ask yourself what else in your life fits those words.
Right.
Failure. Say, well, my body failed. I said, that's not my question. I said, how does failure fit your life? Oh, my parents committed suicide when I was a child. I must have been a failure as a child. Right. Pressure was her marriage.
Yep.
And this was a lady in intense pain who was about to be admitted to the hospital. After I discussed the word pressure with her, she got up and went home.
Yeah.
Free of pain, you know? Right. And the nurse, too, was looking at me like, how did that happen? You know, 15 minutes later, she's free of pain and on the way home to straighten out her marriage.
Right.
And the other is, numbers. Jung said numbers have quantity and meaning that discovered and invented.
Mm-hmm.
We literally store our life experience in our bodies.
Yep.
I mean, organ transplants prove it.
Yep.
But what you'll see in numbers is one hand on a clock pointed at 12, 21 drops of blood coming out of a broken heart.
Yes.
And you say to people, why is 21 important? Say, why is 12 important? What started me was drawing a picture for Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, and who became my teacher. And she said to me, why 11 trees? I said, I've been doing this work 11 months. You know, and she also asked me, what are you covering up? I said, what are you talking about? She said, Bernie, you used a white crayon to make snow on a mountain. The paper's already white. You don't need it on.
What are you covering up?
And that was all my emotions and feelings I was burying as a doctor. You know, I didn't know what to do with them because you're not trained. Again, I was trained to treat disease, not people.
You know, I've always looked at...
let me just say for a minute that, well, you know, some of these women, the two I mentioned with the numbers, I mean, the men too, had problems that their doctors couldn't cure. And that's why one of them said to me, you know, what can we do for this woman? I said, tell her to draw a picture. That's when I got the broken heart. And I said, ask her what happened when she was 21. And she was sexually abused so many times. It was a horror reading the email I received. And now they know what's stored in her and why they can't get her pelvic, you know, problems straightened out. Yeah, but once that comes out, and I may add the other side is when people say it's a wake-up call, it's a blessing, it's a new beginning, and they're talking about life-threatening situations.
Right.
Then I know they're on the right path. You know what I mean? They're moving into a healing.
Right, because they've surrendered into what is.
Yeah.
And they understand it's a growth. I had
not trying not to die. I always tell people it's a waste of time.
It's a waste of time.
Don't die, so do what enhances your life.
Right.
Then you'll end up living longer. But when you're fighting battles, it doesn't improve the situation.
No. And even the word battle is that confrontation, is that fight. And it's like, why are you starting a fight with your body, with your words?
And you empower your enemy, right?
Exactly. You're empowering your enemy. I had a client last year who had stage 4 cancer in her side of her neck that had intertwined with her jugular. And it was pretty serious. And we sat down and I just said, you know, talk to me. I always say, talk to me about personal, professional, physical. What's going on right now? Because it's not the diagnosis. Because remember, 150 years ago or so, when we didn't have microscopes, we had a bum knee. We had a bad back. I mean, we were very generalized in how we felt. With the creation of microscope and what we have today, the fear of the disease, of possibly contracting the disease, is also what can also create the disease because of those words. When we found out with her, with the woman with the stage 4 cancer, it was judgment about her parents and their church lifestyle or their belief systems. We spent 4 hours working with that. And when they took her in the surgery the next week, expecting her not to survive, it took them 1 hour. And the cancer just unwrapped around her jugular and had not gone into her lymphs and had not gone anywhere. And it was just really, it was so powerful, her understanding that her mind was creating
two elements. That's what you need to understand, mind and body. Mm-hmm. The mind creates the internal environment. If you laugh, your immune function improves, stress hormone levels go down. And, I mean, this is done with actors in a play, drawing their blood. If you're in a tragedy, the opposite happens.
Yeah.
So you can get sick acting during the winter in a tragedy while somebody else goes through the winter having no trouble because they're in a Mel Brooks, you know.
Exactly, comedy, yeah.
And feeling good. And I also found the power of the mind. At my website, BernieSiegelMD.com, there's an article entitled Deceiving People into Health. I realized that I was hypnotizing people just talking to them because they saw me as an authority.
Uh-huh.
especially the children. I did a lot of children's surgery.
Yeah.
The kids took what I said so literally that just saying to them, you'll go to sleep and you go in the operating room, the kids fell asleep when we wheeled them in. Everybody in the operating room, it became a standard joke.
Yeah.
All his patients fall asleep. But I realized if that works, why not do it,
Exactly.
And then the kids, I'm thinking of anesthesia, but they hear the word sleep.
Yep.
But what I learned was also from other doctors who came to me, because they, due to medical errors, hadn't treated people for cancer.
Uh-huh.
But they didn't know it. And why were they talking to me? Because they said, oh, I feel terrible. I haven't treated anybody for a month. I said, what are you talking about? He said, they repaired the radiation therapy machine. I just did my monthly routine inspection, and there's no radioactive material in it. I haven't treated anybody. I said, are you a dumbbell? No. Then how come you didn't know you weren't treating people? I said, because they all acted as if they were. They had side effects and shrinking tumors because they thought they were being treated. He almost fainted because it never occurred to him.
Yeah.
That's why he didn't understand. Now, I also have patients on the other side where doctors have called me and said, I thought our machine was broken till I saw your name in the chart. Then I realized it was a crazy patient. So I said to the woman, why don't you have any reaction to your treatment?
Right.
And she said, I get out of the way and I let it go to my tumor. And that's the power. I use the word potential.
Potential.
It's the potential we all have. But when people, again, are afraid, I could do it wrong.
Yep.
What if I don't get well?
What if I don't get well?
Yeah. Yep. What if my hair falls out, with chemo when Siegel said it doesn't have to? Then I failed. I did it wrong.
Right.
That was the sad part. And again, gets back to how you parented, how you brought up by authority figures, school teachers, parents, all these. If they made you feel like a failure, then you're afraid to take a challenge. Yeah, that you'll get an F. Yeah.
Yeah, and that fear just runs rampant. People will, use the acronym of false evidence appearing real. I just say, no, you know what? It's forgetting every available resource, and it's how you talk to your own body. Your body's listening. And if you're in fear or you feel like you're going to go through chemo, so you're going to be sick and you have to lose your hair and so on, then that's what becomes.
Right.
But in my world with my clients, I just say, that's a belief system that you could buy into if you chose, but you could also buy into the fact that you don't need to go through that. And so most of them don't end up going through that sickness and losing of their hair and so forth.
There's no false evidence and there's no false hope.
That's right.
Those are oxymorons.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why I love telling stories, because they're the truth.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And so doctors don't fight with me over the statistical validity and what journal was it in. It's a story about a patient, which is true.
Yeah.
So it, again, offers us that potential also.
Right.
And there's less conflict, because I learned from talking to doctors it was more exhausting trying to prove something rather than tell stories.
Right.
Because then they had stories to tell me, and then, it broke down the barrier and we began to communicate.
Yeah.
Because they realized it was all scientific.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. When I have lectured, around the world and talked about my childhood, and people will say, well, Patti, how can you be so unconditional given the life that you had growing up? I say, but I have the choice. I realize that every single thing that happened to me has helped me grow and helped make me the teacher I am today. And that doesn't mean that I don't need more improvement, because I think it's a continuing cycle. But I have the option. I always have choice to look at my past experiences as a bad experience, or look at what did I learn from that experience that helped me become a better person.
Yeah, one of the other themes from myths is the still pond. That you don't see the truth until the pond is still.
Yeah.
So the ugly duckling is a swan.
Yeah.
The tiger brought up by goats realizes, I'm a tiger, I'm not a goat, when another tiger takes him to a still pond.
Yeah.
And that's what I try to get across to people. If you don't quiet your mind, you never see the truth. So if you look in the mirror, oh, look at me, look what's going to happen. Yeah,
That's
but
right.
when you quiet your mind, you can see the beauty, you can see the truth.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because they always say that when you get to heaven, how are you going to introduce yourself to God?
Right.
He can tell you
Exactly.
the right answer to get you in after the break.
That's a great segue into that next segment. So, folks, today my guest is Bernie Siegel, and you can find him at BernieSiegelMD.com. His website and books all over the place. So when we come back on the other side of the break, we're going to continue this fascinating conversation, because it really is about stories and our own perception and personal responsibility within our life. So this is Patti Conklin, Quantum Physics to Metaphysics with Life in Between, and we'll see you on the other side.
That's Patti Conklin. My name is Bob Keaton, and you're listening to Quantum Physics to Metaphysics with Life in Between. There's much more about Patti Conklin, her certified associates, her new book, and courses that are available right now on the web at patticonklin.com. That's Patti, Patti Conklin, CONKLIN.com.
Hi, my name is Rochette Withers, and I'm a certified associate of the Conklin method of cellular cleansing, colorworks, and healing pools meditations. I'm also a spiritual medium, and I work with you on your soul work. You come in or we meet over the phone, and I open up to what's going on with you spiritually. You get clarity, compassion, kindness, and a depth of understanding of what's going on and how you can shift what you don't like and create a life for yourself that has truth and that resonates with you down deep in your heart. I look forward to connecting. Feel free to reach out when it feels right to you.
Make your appointment with Rochette Withers or any of the practitioners working with Patti Conklin. Visit PATTICONKLIN, patticonklin.com.
Hi, everyone. This is Patti Conklin back with you with Quantum Physics to Metaphysics with Life in Between. And I'm just having this wonderful time today with Bernie Siegel and discussing some of his stories and background and humor. And I know you're taking away a lot of this, folks. I hope you're listening to how important it is to take personal responsibility, to be positive, that just because you get a bad diagnosis or you're not feeling well, look at what you can do to help yourself psychologically in feeling better, which also then helps your body feel better. You know, my main questions are what's going on personally, professionally, physically. How are you learning and growing from that aspect? So Bernie's been giving us some great examples, and I'd like to continue some of that.
Well, before the break, when you get to heaven, they say, you're next on the admission line. How do you want to be introduced to God? If you say, I'm a doctor, they say, come back when you know who you are. But if you say, tell God his kid is here, his child is here.
Yeah.
Or one kid, this is a true answer in a high school student. I got such a kick out of him. He said, tell God his replacement is here. But when you feel the divinity in yourself, God says, hey, come on in. And people need to accept that. You know, we're all made of the same stuff and come from the same stuff. So it's in us. And the other is, I'm a multiple personality. And I get myself sometimes in a lot of trouble because I'm comfortable being nuts, acting crazy and having a sense of humor. Yeah. Now, I learned in the hospital it helped very much because, just to make this a brief story, this was a woman in total panic. And I had delayed the surgery trying to calm her down, but it was hopeless. So I wheeled her in the operating room and she said, thank God all these wonderful people are going to take care of me. And I said, I know these people. They're not wonderful people. I've worked with them for years. Now, for a minute, I thought she was going to run down the hall, but
I
she
can imagine.
realized, I'm kidding, because all the staff in the operating room is laughing because they know how nuts I am. And she burst out laughing.
Yeah.
And then there was no fear. We became family.
That's right.
I wrote something recently, again, about my behavior, that a newspaper had trouble putting the word in because all the news. But my wife and I walked into this restaurant, and there was a table full of black people.
Uh-huh.
And I walk over to them with my wife, and I said, hey, I'm sorry we're late. Now, I don't even know them. And they look up and burst out laughing. And my wife told them how beautiful they looked laughing. And we became friends in a minute, see?
Yeah.
And then my wife and I sat down at a separate table, and we finished eating and walked past their table. And I said, hey, we finished before you did. And one of them looked at me and said, I had a feeling you were going to pay for our meals. And I said, wow, you're reading my mind. That's the thought I had, that when I checked out, I would pay, your
right.
And they were saying, oh, we're just having coffee and, Tree, we're just having a meeting. It's no big deal. I said, if it's not a lot of money, that makes it even better for me. But, they were laughing, but they wouldn't let me, pay their check.
Right.
But still, we left friends.
Yeah.
And I put this in a newspaper column I wrote, and the editors took the word black out.
Oh.
And I felt that was so terrible.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't, this week, they didn't even put my column in the paper because it was about editors. You see, they're trying to control. But think of the headlines. The police shooting black. We became family with those black people.
Right.
With a sense of humor.
Right.
I won't get into all the, like the black friends I have, but let me share these things with you because I call it a multiple personality. And then people get to know you. These things have really happened. I called a Chinese restaurant. What's your phone number? I don't eat phones. Is this Dr. Siegel? Yes. I called my veterinarian. Do you care for alligators? Is this Dr. Siegel?
Uh-huh.
Yes. Oh, yeah, I walked into a kosher delicatessen and asked out loud, where do you keep your bacon? And everybody in the store looked at me like, are you insane? This is a kosher delicatessen. Well, the owner knows me, so she says it's over there next to the ham. See, and then everybody in the store is laughing.
Yeah.
When people come up to me, like, again, a waitress, and say, how's everything? I say, why are you upsetting me? Do you listen to the news? I've got my problems. I'm trying to eat, and you have to ask me, how's everything? So I'm training them to say, how was your meal?
How was your meal? Be specific. Yeah.
Yeah. And oh, yeah, at the pizzeria, I ask for Chinese food when I go in to pick it up. And the waitresses don't know whether I'm retarded or what. But one night, the owner had Chinese food for me. Can you imagine? I walked in and said, you have my Chinese food ready? And they put it on the counter.
Wow. Wow.
All these things are just a way to wake up the world. Yeah. And I was telling this to somebody in the Chinese restaurant, when he said, what's your phone number? And I said, I don't eat phones. And when I went to pick up the meal, I told him some of these stories, and he showed me 8 attractive young women sitting at a table with 9 seats. And 1 seat was empty. So he said, what are you going to do? So I went over and sat down. And started talking to them. And, they loved it. And they asked me a question and I answered it. And they said, hey, we like that.
Yeah.
And again, it's, that message. And I finished with this. The world breaks everyone. This is from Hemingway. But some of us become strong at the broken places.
Yes.
And that's a powerful sentence. It's through all our troubles that we happen. I mean, this song, too. There are times in life when you got to crawl, because I love the country western. Lose your grip, stumble and fall. Uh-huh. When you can't lean on no one else, that's when you find yourself. Yep. I've been around, I can tell you that the going's easy when the road is flat. Them danged hills will get you every time. Uh-huh. That's when you learn how to climb. And God gave us mountains so we'd learn how to climb. Yeah. And again, it's often the songwriters, the so-called fiction writers, understand the world. Mm-hmm. And what they do is to speak, again, the truth. You may say, It's, fiction, but it isn't. Um, it's the truth because they've seen it.
Right.
And this was in a poem called Miss G by W.H. Auden about cancer. Childless women get it, and men, when they retire, it's as if there had to be an outlet for their foiled creative fire.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Interesting.
You have a minute more?
Yeah.
Because this came from an Ann Landers column in 1999, and it's often still published. And this will tell people how to behave. If you can start the day without caffeine, get going without pep pills, resist complaining and boring people with your troubles, eat the same food every day and be grateful for it, understand when your loved ones are too busy to give you any time, if you can overlook it when something goes wrong through no fault of yours and those you love take it out on you, if you can take criticism and blame without resentment, ignore a friend's limited education and never correct him, resist treating a rich friend better than a poor friend, face the world without lies and deceit, conquer tension without medical help, relax without liquor, sleep without the aid of drugs, and say honestly that deep in your heart you have no prejudice against creed, color, religion, or politics, then, my friends, you're almost as good as your dog. So I always tell people, when you read this, and they're looking at you seriously at some lecture,
Right.
I always say that whenever you don't know what to do, say WWLD. And that is, what would Lassie do? So imitate your dog and you'll be doing a good job.
And then we do it because they're so unconditional creatures. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. They're going to love you no matter what. Going to love you no matter what.
And it's, as I was saying, it's just so fascinating to me that how they couldn't deal with the word black as editors.
Right.
When I felt it was such an important part of what I was writing about.
Right.
That it's, again, even why do you become a doctor? See, why does Jack Kevorkian end up killing people and ending up in jail?
Yep.
Because he became a doctor for unhealthy reasons. It used to be a joke in medical school. All the kids who said they were going to be psychiatrists were troubled kids.
Right.
They were doing it because they needed help.
Exactly.
And again, so why you become a policeman? I was a police surgeon in New Haven for a lot of years. And there are healthy reasons for becoming a policeman and unhealthy ones.
Right.
And I'd say that's the reasons you see some of these tragedies in the streets. Yeah. They're police for the wrong reasons.
Right.
And the same is true with the violence and the mass murders, that when you grow up with rejection, well, this is, again, from a writer, East of Eden, John Steinbeck. Mm-hmm. We experience rejection. With rejection becomes a desire for revenge. With revenge, guilt, and there is the story of mankind.
Yep.
So why do you go out and kill people? Because you're taking revenge on what your parents did to you and others did to you, and then you feel guilty and you usually end up killing yourself or getting killed.
Or getting killed, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that it's so important for people and so important for educators to keep that humor alive. I love it when I'm getting up in front of a conference and in front of a workshop and I say, well, this is the deal. I'm a double Leo with a Scorpio rising. And that doesn't mean that what I'm saying is right or wrong. It just means I don't have any problem getting up here telling you what I think. So whether you walk out loving what I said or you walk out hating what I said, either way, you got to think about it and come to a conclusion. So I'm just going to be me and just give you my shtick and we'll take it from there.
Right.
Because you've got to, I think, help people understand the patterns that they get stuck in terms of their life.
I was well known. Some well-known actors came when they got sick to see me. And I always had one simple question. You get on the stage and nobody applauds. How do you feel? Terrible. Get off the stage.
Get off the stage.
If you're dealing with illness, get off the stage.
That's
Others would say, hey, I'm there to give them something. If they don't like it, okay. I'm sorry, but I'm there to give them. I can handle it. I'd say, fine, then you can keep performing and acting.
Yep.
And I've learned that too. There are people who come up and say, I heard you before, it's boring, and others come up and say, thank you, that was wonderful. And it's what's in the person and what they're seeing. And we tend to project onto others what is within us.
Yes.
I always say that, when you're blaming somebody else for something, take a look inside yourself.
That's right.
Because the best doctors, I always say, or plumbers or whatever, are criticized by patients, family, and nurses.
Yep.
See? So the people you work for, the people you work with, and your family, if they're criticizing you, that's a wonderful sign because they know you're listening and willing to change. They're your life coaches.
Right.
And when you're never criticized, that's a terrible sign because it means you make excuses or blame them so they stop talking to you.
Exactly. Such a true statement. Such a true statement. So we're interviewing today and having a great conversation with Bernie Siegel MD. And we've got another segment coming up here on the other side. But folks, go to his website, BernieSiegelMD.com. This is Patti Conklin with Quantum Physics to Metaphysics with Life in Between. How do we start marrying science and spirituality instead of separating them? How do we bring them together? Because they really do work well together. So we'll see you in just a few minutes, folks.
You desire a healthy, fit body, and you've tried numerous fitness programs, you were committed, and you worked hard, but you never achieved your goals. Maybe it's not your fitness program. Your subconscious thoughts may be holding you back. Hi, my name is Bonnie Rawls, and for over 30 years I have practiced sports medicine, training, fitness, and rehabilitation. I have observed that most individuals are not aware of their self-defeating subconscious thoughts and perceptions. Negative words, thoughts, and perceptions cause a disruption in your body's energy flow. As co-founder of Soul Fitness Healing and a certified associate of the Conklin method, I combine my traditional sports medicine with my intuitive energetic skills. I assist you in discovering and replacing your fear-based words, thoughts, and perceptions with healthy, positive ones. And you are off to achieving your goals.
More information at PattiConklin, PattiConklin.com.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for tuning in with me today. This is Patti Conklin, Quantum Physics to Metaphysics with Life in Between. My guest today is the most amazing, wonderful man, Bernie Siegel, MD.com. Check out his website if you haven't already been there 1,000 times, because most of you probably have been. But check it out anyways, and his extraordinary teaching that really just is the epitome of how do we look at our, quote, challenges in life with humor and progression and not get stagnated and stuck. I think it's just so important that you take a situation and you learn from it and you grow from it, and that way it no longer becomes a burden in your past. It becomes an exciting future and an adventure. So one of the things that I really wanted to touch on with the show, Bernie, is love animals and miracles. And you wrote that, it was published in November of 15. What made you write that?
Well, it's just, as I mentioned, what would Lassie do?
Yeah.
It's just all the wonderful things that animals teach us. We have 5 children, and when they were growing up, our home was a zoo and a rescue shelter. I mean, you just would not believe what our house was like, okay? Because everything was family. Everybody had a name.
Uh-huh.
I mean, every turtle, every exotic pet had a name.
Yeah.
And they were running loose. They lived with us. I mean, it's one of the few houses you'd see mice run through the living room, and people would go, "Oh, I said, yeah, that's just, don't get excited. That's,
That's just Charlie running
the family." Yeah, right. And, but it taught the kids a reverence for life.
Mm-hmm.
See?
Yeah.
And I, for years, have been picking up worms when I see them in the street and put them on the ground to save their lives, thinking you're neurotic, but, just keep doing it. And guess what I read from Albert Schweitzer?
What?
If you're out on the street and you see a worm, pick it up and return it to the earth. And if you see an insect in a puddle, give it a leaf to climb on.
Wow.
I read that. It was such therapy.
Yeah.
You know, that you're not crazy. You care about life. And that's what our kids are like.
Yeah.
I mean, matter of fact, one of our kids is in law enforcement. He's capable of killing because he had to say that in order to be accepted into the FBI.
Right.
And when I heard that, it was like, oh my God, that your own child says I can kill someone?
Right.
But, see, what do I get in an email from him? Am I worried about him having a gun? No. Dad, I was in between classes. I went for a walk. He was down in Virginia. I saw a turtle. Must have been a male who didn't ask directions. So I picked it up. I spent half an hour and found a pond and let him go there.
Yeah.
Now, think about what kind of a person he is if he'll spend half an hour of his day to save the life of a turtle.
Of a turtle. That's right. That's right.
That's what we have to learn from the animals. And also, not only in a little book I wrote for children, but called Buddy's Candle, but it was the same message as from one of our kids. One of our kids told me his leg hurt and he needed an x-ray. See, that's also the intuitive. It's so amazing. I mean, there are dreams I discuss in another one of our books called The Book of Miracles, where people have a dream and somebody appears and says, you have a lump in your breast.
Right.
And they do.
And they do. Yeah.
Yeah. And the person in the dream ends up being her doctor. But anyway,
yeah.
our kids at age 7 said, I need an x-ray. I said, what are you talking about? Take a hot bath, your knee will feel better. Well, he turned out to have a tumor. See, because when a 7-year-old says, I need an x-ray, that ain't normal.
That's right.
So he did it and he had a tumor.
Yep.
And then he came to me the next day because I'm the doctor, see, so I know what's going to happen to him. You know, his leg will be cut off. He'll be dead in a year. I mean,
right.
All the horror that was in my mind.
Exactly.
And just picture this 7-year-old walking up to his father and saying, can I talk to you for a minute? Yes. You're handling this poorly. And then he gave me, therapy for half an hour, explaining that they're trying to have a nice day and I'm worried about next year.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the same thing in this story I wrote. It's called Buddy's Candle, but it's about a dog and a child who get cancer.
Yeah.
And the kid says to his parents, why don't we let Buddy teach us? He's having a nice day and you're all upset and worried.
Yeah.
And this really happened to a friend of mine. She wrote a book called Animals as Teachers and Healers.
Yeah.
She developed cancer. The man she was living with, her partner, took off. He couldn't deal with it. She's going to be dead soon, and, he couldn't handle emotions. And she was now totally depressed. I'm alone. I got nothing. And a cat walks across the porch. So she began to feed it and then let it in.
Yeah.
And once it came in, she took it to a vet to get checkup to know, she's going through therapy and that it's a healthy cat. Well, of course, the vet looks at the cat and checks it and says it has leukemia and about a year to live.
Yep.
So she came home sitting there thinking, I'll be dead, the cat will be dead. But then she noticed the cat's running all over the living room, leaping, having fun, playing.
That's
Maybe
right.
The cat knows something I don't know.
That I don't know. That's right.
The cat lived for, I think it was 13 or 14 years.
Yep.
But it saved her life to have that cat, because she is alive and married today too.
Right.
To do that, because I know people who've gone home and died in a week when healthcare plans have said, no, we're not paying for cataract surgery. You have cancer. You'll probably be dead in a year. We're not going to waste money on you.
Right.
He went home, got into bed, and died in a week.
Yep.
And I told them they ought to sue the health plan, and they did.
Yep.
Because it's again, our if you look forward to something, like, again, women with relationships, they live longer than men with the same cancer. Married men longer than single men. And they always say to doctors, it ain't about their hormones. It's about their desire to survive, and to be into relationships. Because I've had men in the office say, I can't work. What's the point of living?
Yep.
Who's sitting next to them? Their wife and children.
Yep.
And you hear your father say, there's no point in living. I can't work anymore.
Yep.
And I said, what about these reasons? And it's like you hit them in the head with a mallet. Oh, I never thought of that.
Yep. Yeah, because they're so self-absorbed within what's taking place with them.
Let me give you a quote from a lawyer.
Yeah.
He should have been dead, but isn't. He said, I came to a conclusion that was eminently reasonable, totally logical, and completely wrong. Because while learning to think, I almost forgot how to feel.
Ah, wow.
A lawyer who was told he had 5% chance of living 2 years. He said, while his car was, he wrote to me. He said, while my car was being repaired, I went in a used bookstore, and your book, jumped off the shelf. That's no coincidence.
Right.
And he read it, transformed his life. The cancer disappeared.
Yep.
His doctor, thinks he's lucky and didn't want to know what he did. So that's the tragic part. I learned to say to patients, why didn't you die? And then you can teach other patients.
Right.
And we need to learn from success.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not say you had a spontaneous remission. But as a matter of fact, in Solzhenitsyn's book, Cancer Ward, he uses the term self-induced healing.
Yes.
And one of the men is reading a book saying, look what I found.
Right.
And it flutters out of the book like a rainbow-colored butterfly.
Yeah.
And that's the symbol for people to take with them. The rainbow is finding harmony and order and rhythm in your life. The butterfly is a symbol of transformation.
Yeah.
So you want to exceed expectations, transform your life, create harmony and rhythm. Yeah. And you'll be amazed at what happens, because then your body gets the message.
Exactly. Your body comes in sync with that. When it's been 30 years now, I had been diagnosed with both forms of lupus and took out my right kidney, and I was in critical shape. And the doctors were going, you're not going to live much longer because it's aggressive and you've got both forms and it's hitting you. And I sat back and I went, what is it within me, my personality, that really brought this to the forefront? And I realized it was self-worth, that I was working in PhD positions with a high school education. And because I doubled up and graduated early at 15, I didn't even feel like my high school diploma was worth anything because I cheated. I graduated early. So I realized it was that self-worth. And it took me a year. And then both forms of lupus was gone. And the doctors will say, oh, you're just in a long remission period. I'm like, we test my blood I don't have it. And they're like, that's impossible. And I'm like, no, it's not. It's because I was willing to go inside and look at what I really needed to do, what was taking place with me. And I was working in positions that I didn't feel qualified for.
He who seeks to save his life will lose it. He who's willing to lose his life will save it.
Yep.
Yeah, you lost the other self and saved your life.
That's right.
I have a friend who has scleroderma. A part of it, too, I saw with autoimmune is the need to express anger.
Yes.
Whatever it's about, say. In her case, it was parents who committed suicide, told their children to commit suicide, abuse, everything. When I met her, I didn't know what to do for her.
Yeah.
That was the best thing that ever happened. So I sat in front of her while she ranted and raved and screamed and yelled, and she got it all out.
Yep.
Yeah. And if I had told her, this is what you need to do, take this pill, I think she would have gone home and died. She's alive over 30 years later.
Yep.
And let me just, again, to quote her, an old letter I got from her many years ago. She said, I had no control over the parents who raised me or the circumstances I was exposed to, but when I let love into my prison, it changed every negative item in it, meaning the experiences in my life, and turned them into something meaningful.
It's so true.
She became my teacher.
Yep. And that's such a true statement, because we have the experiences we have as children. But we're the one who makes a choice as an adult as to how much of that is going to play into our life now and what we're really going to bring in. Are we going to bring in love and acceptance, or are we going to stay with the storyline that we were given at birth? Folks, today we've had Bernie Siegel MD, the Quantum Physics to Metaphysics. Thank you so much for being with me today, and I truly appreciate you taking your time. It was wonderful.
Thank you, Patti.